But of course, all these different land arguments only added fuel to the fire, and it was finally about pushed Libya to declare an independent Métis state in the Northwest Territories. Its capital was an obscure settlement named Batoche. There Riel declared the provisional government of the Republic of Saskatchewan. Riel also proclaimed by his own inclination, to be the president and commander-in-chief of this provisional government. He also proclaimed himself to be the pope of a new Métis church. After only a week of peacetime government, Riel received word that the Mounties were coming to arrest him and his council of the provisional government. So Riel, as commander-in-chief, appointed Gabriel Dumont as his top general, and he ordered Dumont to stop the Mounties from coming to Batoche. This resulted in Riel having an attack, or probably a relapse, of schizophrenia. Riel started to talk about religion 24/7 in any case. Dumont had gone off to hopefully peacefully persuade the Mounties from not coming to Batoche. On March 24, 1885, about 100 Mounties and civilian volunteer militia from Prince Albert met Dumont's 500 Métis militia. The result was the Battle of Duck Lake. This left 3 Mounties and 22 civilian volunteers dead or wounded. It also left 3 men of Métis militia dead and 2 more wounded. Riel had actually had to order Dumont to stop pursuing the enemy and go back to Batoche instead. So with the Mounties and militia safely gone back to Prince Albert, they immediately telegraphed the news of the Battle of Duck Lake to the Prime Minister, who was also Mr. Militia as well. When Macdonald heard the news, he immediately went to see the Governor General, as the Prime Minister needs formal written permission from the Governor General to take any military action. The Governor General immediately granted Macdonald's request when he heard of the news of the Battle of Duck Lake. In Ottawa, Macdonald called up the militia, which had been of units from Nova Scotia to Ontario and everywhere in between. He also planned to use a new railway to rush them out west, consisting of 5,000 Canadian and British troops and 500 Mounties to crush the Northwest Rebellion under the command of Major General Frederick Middleton. The troops were rushed to the Northwest Territories in only 11 days by the Canadian Pacific Railway's hastily assembled troop trains by the railway. So for once, Macdonald's railway was proving its worth. Macdonald was told the food supplies with regard to the native peoples of the Northwest Territories was very low, as they were literally starving to death by this point in time, which is largely due to his own drug idiosyncrasies, and which is pure bureaucratic and governmental inefficiency on behalf of the Canadian government in general. To remedy this situation, he told Alexander Tillage Galt, Minister of Indian Affairs at the time, to tell his son Elliot to throw open the Canadian government food stores to the natives of Western Canada to prevent further rebellions. This unorthodox plan worked, although no one was particularly happy at the expense, particularly Sir Samuel Tillage, who was Minister of Finance at the time. But a while later, Macdonald received a telegram from Chief Crowfoot of the Blackfoot Confederacy that he had decided to remain loyal to the Queen, by extension the Canadian government. The neutrality of the Blackfoot was an extremely good thing for Macdonald, as it meant the army could concentrate on the trouble spots and quickly crush the Northwest Rebellion. Now, in spite of 2 major victories at the Battle of Duck Lake and the Battle of Cotlife, sometimes called Cotton, the Northwest Rebellion is ultimately doomed from the start. The army was defeated at the Battle of Cotton by a combined force of Cree and Assiniboine warriors, as well as their Métis allies, under the command of Chief Palmmaker. Major General Middleton then just pressed on, and within about a month or so of the rebellion, it was all over. There was also the Battle of Fort Battleford, in which the Northwest Mounted Police successfully defended their fort. There was also the Battle of Fort Pitt, in which the man under the command of Inspector Francis Dickens, the author Charles Dickens' son, surrendered the fort. There was the Battle of Fish Creek, there's the Battle of Two Large Coulee nowadays, which is when the Canadian Army successfully fought off a defensive force of Métis militia. There was the Battle of Batoche, which saw the first use of the Gatling gun in Canada, along with the first use of the breech-loading rifled field artillery guns in Canada. Both of these battles proved decisive, and after 3 days the Métis militia surrendered, after 3 were wounded and 12 dead, including one child who was the only victim of the famous Gatling gun. But they fought long enough for Gabriel Dumont to escape across the border. A week later, the last battle was fought on Canadian soil, the Battle of Loon Lake, resulting in the deaths of 5 Mounties and a few Cree and Assiniboine warriors, too. The Battle of Loon Lake ended with the arrest of some of the surviving warriors who had not fled the battlefield or hadn't been killed. But it ended with Chief Big Bear surrendering to the Mounties a few days later. There was also the Battle of Frenchman's Butte, which is also sometimes called the Battle of the Sweetgrass Hills. This resulted in the deaths of a few Mounties and some Maine militia. It also resulted in the arrest of Chief Poundmaker and a few of his top warriors. Louis Riel was not quite sure what to do. He had two options: surrender and hope for mercy when it came to his trial, as he knew he would almost certainly be executed, or flee to the U.S. once more and live the rest of his life in exile, or possibly deported to Canada by the American government and be hanged for his crimes here. Riel decided to surrender to the Mounties, who took him to see Major General Middleton in person. Major General Middleton then sent a telegram to John A. Macdonald asking, "Riel is my prisoner. What is to be done with him? I await instructions here." When the Battle of Batoche was over, Riel is supposed to have said, "I have seen a giant. He is coming. He is Goliath. Oh my God, grant us the favors that we may beat them one after another." It is important to note that the Métis actually fought more against Riel than for him. In fact, a lot more Métis actually fought on the side of the Canadian government than for Riel. It is important to remember that the Red River Rebellion of 1869-70 and the Northwest Rebellion of 1885 were both for the Métis a civil war, just like the American Civil War had been about 25 years earlier. It was also Métis fighting against other Métis. It was not, as many people nowadays believe on both sides, the Métis Native peoples of Western Canada against the Canadian government. This view is equally biased on both sides. It is more to do with nationalism on behalf of Native peoples and Métis as well. It is also why the Northwest Rebellion is sometimes nowadays called the Northwest Resistance or sometimes Northwest Uprising by some, even though it was called the Northwest Mounted Police until very recently. Riel spent a short stint being locked up and chained to a wall or a cell at the Northwest Mounted Police headquarters in Regina, today called Depot Division, where all new mines have been trained ever since 1885 as a result of reforms stemming from the Northwest Rebellion earlier that year. Riel had won a trial held in Quebec City, as he thought he would get a fair trial being a French-Canadian Métis man. Riel was, however, to be tried in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in the Supreme Court of Manitoba. The Deputy Justice Minister and also future Prime Minister, John David Sparrow Thompson, was told that in Winnipeg, even a packed jury would make at least some pro-Métis, or perhaps even Métis themselves. So Thompson told John A. Macdonald to move the trial to Regina, which he duly did, as he was both Justice Minister and Prime Minister at the same time, so he could authorize that. The trial began on July 15th, 1885, in a courtroom in Regina that was so packed that people were pitching tents in the street just to watch the trial unfold. The trial itself was actually the biggest economic boom in the history of Regina, relatively speaking, from a legal and economic perspective. After a 28-day trial, a jury of 6 men, all handpicked by the government as they were either Orangemen or Conservative Party members or both, found Riel guilty. In any case, Riel took the stand and testified for 2 days straight in his own defense, but it was to no avail. On September the 12th, 1885, after only 15 minutes, it was decided that Riel was guilty of all 6 counts of high treason. The 6 gentlemen of the jury condemned Riel to death with a recommendation for mercy, meaning that he would spend the rest of his life in a mental institution. By this point, everyone was convinced, one way or another in Canada, that Riel was a madman and not criminally responsible for the two rebellions because of his insanity. The verdict of not guilty of his insanity would have spared Riel's life. But Macdonald had personally made sure from a legal perspective Riel would be hanged for leading 2 armed uprisings against Her Majesty Queen Victoria and the governments of both Great Britain and Dominion of Canada. By the way, he was supposed to be hanged on September 28th, but due to numerous different legal appeals of the Privy Council, the date was changed to November 16th instead. In Ottawa, the trial of Riel provoked constant day-by-day attacks from the Rouge Party. This was something of a cross between the Bloc de Québécois, Separatist Party, and the Liberal Party, as it was predominantly made up of French-Canadian Liberal members of Parliament. But Macdonald wasn't called the old chieftain for nothing, as he easily dealt with these attacks from the Rouge Party, led by Wilfrid Laurier. The Conservative Party began to suffer from some splits as a result of this. The splits within the Conservative Party were based on who supported the Friends of the Confederation, who were still alive, and other politicians who were not Friends of the Confederation. There was also a split between English-speaking and French-speaking Conservative members of Parliament. In the end, MacDonald, who was quite funny when he was drunk, stood up, all 6 feet 8 inches of him in the House of Commons, sober, serious, and angry, to say that Riel would be hanged, no matter what the people of Quebec or any other French Canadians thought of it. In fact, his exact words were, "He shall be hanged, although every dog in Quebec barks in his favour." In fact, MacDonald had been drunk at the time of the Riel affair. Canadian history may have been very different, but the constant badgering of different senior members of the Conservative Party meant that John A. Macdonald stayed sober during the whole of the Riel trial. Indeed, for the entirety of the rebellion of 1885, too. On November 16th, Riel went to the gallows in the Northwest Mounted Police headquarters in Regina and was hanged at exactly 9:30 a.m. Even though, allowing for the time difference in different parts of the country, everybody knew by telegraph within an hour of Riel being hanged. In the province of Quebec and among French Canadians generally, there was a lot of outrage. Macdonald was even burnt in effigy in Quebec, and there were lots of riots all over Quebec. In French-speaking Canada, there was an protest and a lot of violence too, as a result of ordering the death of Riel and his handling of the whole affair with regard to the Northwest Rebellion and the Red River Rebellion in general terms. As Riel had been a one-up man since 1869, Sir John and Macdonald got a lot of death threats, or at least threatening of assassination attempts on him. It was Sir Wilfrid Laurier who summed up it with the results that French Canada when he said, "Blood, blood, blood. Prisons, scaffolds, widows, orphans, destitution, and ruins. These are what fill the blanks of the administration of this government of the affairs of the Northwest Territories." In the province of Ontario, the Orange Order was celebrated by burning Riel in effigy. There was a lot of riots all over the province, but other than that, the reaction in most of English Canada was one of sadness at the death of Riel. To which Macdonald responded, "Canada is delirious with enthusiasm upon the return of our volunteers. This has done more to weld the provinces into one nation than anything else could have done. Never before or since the hanging of Riel has Canada been so divided along our traditional fault lines of French-speaking versus English-speaking Canada. Unless, of course, somebody takes into account the conscription crises of 1917 during the First World War and the second conscription crisis during 1944 in the Second World War. In terms of peacetime divisions of Canada, the hanging of Riel is by far the most that this country has ever been divided. It is not surprising, then, that the decision of whether or not to hang Riel is still argued passionately in Canada even today. If a person is a French Canadian, they view Riel as a hero. To the Métis native peoples, Riel is also viewed as a martyr of sorts, for he fought against the Canadian government. An English Canadian tends to view Riel as an insane madman who caused two armed uprisings, depending on how far someone wants to go. It may also be said that he shot Mr. Thomas Walter Scott for no good reason, other than that Mr. Scott had insulted Riel personally at some point, or at least something that he thought of as an insult due to his schizophrenia. When Macdonald said, quote, "There was an attempt in Quebec to pump up patriotic feeling about him, but I don't think it will amount to much," he could not have been more wrong, for even today, in death as in life, Riel still has the power to tear the country of Canada apart.